Okay, so we made some progress with the Tremec 5-speed conversion on Dad's 70 Camaro here. I got a bunch of pictures to show you as we were doing things. I got a little bit of video. So I'm going to show you what we've got. We've had the transmission up there a couple times. We've got a hole. I don't know if that's, we might have to enlarge that, but right now that's kind of the center of where it's coming off. It might be off to the side a little bit, but the shifter does, it moves off to the side. So you can see we've got the flywheel on, except for one bolt. That's because we're doing measuring. We've got the pilot bearing in there. Got that drove in there. You don't want to forget that because your transmission uses that for support. Okay, we got some really nice ARP flywheel bolts. Really nice bolts. And using blue Loctite on the threads. And then we're using ARP assembly lube. This only goes on the bolt where it's gonna rub on the flywheel when it gets tightened down. So basically just the lube is on just this area right here around the bolt. I'm gonna torque them to 75 foot-pounds, I guess, is what the directions say on the ARP bolt kit. You can see we've got the back of the engine cleaned off really well. Got the dowel pins cleaned off really well. Everything's got to be clean, guys. The bell housing, everything's got to be clean. So we did that. We've actually had the bell housing up there. I was going to show you the measurement. I think I'll show you once we get it dialed in. We did the measurement, and we're good side to side. We're within spec, within 5 thousandths. But up and down, we're about 15 thousandths off. So I've got some 14 thousandths offset dowel pins coming. They should be in tomorrow. We'll get those in, and then I'll probably show you the actual how we measure that once we get that in there. Okay, so right now we're checking the position of the bell housing. What you're looking for is this hole here has to be within 5 thousandths of the center of the crank. That's what you're looking for this transmission not to have trouble. You know, you're trying to keep this shaft right here straight and not, you know, pushed off to one way or the other. So getting this hole lined up with the crank is gonna keep that shaft happy, keep the transmission happy. Like I said, they say within 5 thousandths. You ain't got to be perfect. 5 thousandths is pretty tight tolerances. But anyway, I got this tool. I'll show it to you when I get it out. I'll show a picture of it now with it out. It's got a magnet on it, and it's connected to the flywheel in there. And we got a gauge on it, and we're measuring. You can see right in the center of the lip there. And what I'm gonna do is I've got it zeroed out here, but I'm gonna zero it out 90 degrees from here up there. You know, maybe that's not perfectly 90, but it's pretty close. It's gonna tell me what I need to know. Okay, so I'm starting with the mark on the lower right hand side. And the reason I am starting there is because when I spun the gauge around before I started this, uh, this is where it said it was off the most, if that makes sense. So that's where I'm starting to read the the reading, because that's going to give me a more accurate result. Okay, so we're going to start running this thing around. I'm actually rotating the engine with the crank bolt and a big bar. All the spark plugs are out to make it easier. Now we're going to stop 180 degrees from where we started. And you can see it's a little over 7 thousandths out. Now, because this is a circle, you have to divide that in half to get your what you're really off. Total is about a little over 7 thousandths total, but you got to divide that in half to get your what you're off really. So at these points, we are off a little over 3.5 thousandths of an inch, which is well within the 5 thousandths that we are allowed. Okay, so now we're gonna run it around just to make sure it zeroes out again. That just checks to make sure nothing moved. The gauge is reading accurate, and it does. Okay, so now I've got the gauge zeroed out on the upper right hand mark, and I like to do it this way. I feel like it's easier to see. You can zero it out at one mark, and then every 90 degrees write down your measurement and then do some math, and it'll tell you the same thing. I just feel it's easier to zero it out um, at the 90 degrees and then go 180 from the last measurement you did. And I just, like I said, it just feels like it's easier to read this way. Okay, so we're going to run the gauge around and we'll see where we end up. Right about there is 180 degrees, and you can see there's a shadow there, but I think we were like 2 thousandths or something off this way. We weren't off very much to begin with, side to side, and that's probably going to be the case, I think, with most engines. You're going to be up and down is where you're going to be off the most. So we're off 2 thousandths total. Remember, you got to divide that in half, so we're off about 1/1000th of an inch that way. I'm going to roll this around to the where we started, just to make sure it zeroes out, to make sure we're accurate, nothing moved or whatever, and it is. So I feel confident with these measurements. So right now we are within spec of what we need to be. We weren't the first time that we did this. So how do you move the bell housing around? Well, you need some offset dowel pins. That's going to move the bell housing, whichever direction you need to move it to get it within spec. I'm going to show you the ones we went with, and I'll link them. But yeah, that's all you do is offset dowel pins, and that's exactly what they are. They're offset dowel pins, so you can turn them and move the bell housing up, down, sideways, and get this measurement dialed in. Okay, so some quick tips on the dowel pins. This is the brand we use. These are actually the 7 thousandths ones, but we needed the 14 thousandths ones. But I'm going to show you a few things, a few tips on these. These are adjustable. They have a slot in the back. That part goes into the motor, and then there's an Allen bolt in there, and once you get everything set, you tighten the Allen bolt. It spreads this out and keeps it from turning and messing up your alignment once you get it set. There's slots on the side so you can put a wrench on it and turn it. Although I found that we had to pound ours out a little bit to get it to turn. It wouldn't turn all the way inside the motor. Okay, so another tip, pounding these in. I would recommend using a plastic hammer to pound these in. Do not use a steel hammer to pound these in. If you need a little more power to get these in, I would use a ball peen hammer, kind of like this, so you don't hit the outside. You know, put the hammer like that and hit this hammer with another hammer. That'll keep you from mushrooming this, because we had a little trouble. I was tapping on it, didn't think I was hitting it that hard, and I kind of mushroomed the end and I had to fix it. I kind of think they should be a little stronger, but maybe because they are hollow is why they're not very strong. But anyway, them are some tips that are going to help when you use this type of offset dowel pin. So one more measurement they say is kind of critical, is to make sure the face of this bell housing is perfectly flat to the crank there. So you want to measure your face right around this area. I show you ours, but when I turn this, the gauge goes upside down. You ain't gonna be able to see it. We're within 0.02 of an inch when we go all the way around. They say again, within 0.005 is what you want. So that's a kind of a critical measurement too. You wanna make sure you're looking at. Also, fitting the cross member, the transmission mount cross member, getting that fitted in. Did have to move the floor, massage the floor a little bit, like I said before, to clearance it, but I think we're going to be good. I'm going to have to retouch up the floor there. I messed up the undercoating. I've got a few places I got to touch up because we're under here, we're moving things, it's just going to happen. So once we get everything figured out, I'm going to touch up the floor, probably touch up the frame a little bit, get everything cleaned up. We also did a check to see, make sure that the shaft here is going into the pilot bearing. What we did there is we just stuck the transmission up there one time when we had it up there, put a little bit of grease on it, and then we saw how far the grease slid back on it. So we're good to go there. It said to check that for some reason, but I'm not sure why, but we checked it when we had it up there. Had to pull the transmission shifter piece off to get it up in there. We might have a little trouble getting this thing on the motor. For some reason the motor doesn't want to tip back very much, but we did go with polyurethane engine mount, so I think that's why it's not wanting to really move. So we really need to get this engine tipped back to get the right angle, because when the clutch is on there, it's going to be a little more difficult to slide it in without it being angled back a little bit, because the tunnel transmission starts hitting the tunnel and stuff like that. So we got to try to get the engine back to get the right angle. Okay guys, so you can see our table here. It's getting less and less parts on it, which is a good thing. You can see the car. Actually, we've got a bunch done under here. I kind of skipped over the clutch. We got kind of rolling on it, and I actually didn't even get pictures, which I was trying to get pictures of everything. They have pretty good instructions on that, so it's not too difficult. It's you know, standard clutch stuff. You clean all your surfaces, your flywheel, and then they have a lineup tool. And you put your clutch in there, clutch disc in there. You put it in the right way. There's a certain way it's got to go. There's a front and a back. Then you put your pressure plate on there, and then you want to crisscross, slowly tighten that up. That's standard clutch stuff, guys. And then when you go to pull your alignment tool out, it's got to come out easily. And if it's hard to get it out, or actually the first time we put it in there, we had the pop. It popped out. It wasn't too hard to pull out, but it kind of popped out. So had to loosen everything back up, push the clutch up a little bit with the tool, went back around, slowly tightened it back up, and then it was really easy coming out. The tool come right out real easy, which is what you want, because what that's gonna do is, when you go to put the transmission in like we did, it fell right into place. It slid right in there. If you got that clutch disc off, you're gonna fight it. It's just no way around it. You're gonna fight it. And then if your bell housing, you know, if you didn't line up your bell housing, you're gonna have a hard time getting your shaft to go in that pilot bearing. So all the measurements and all the time you took getting everything lined up, when you go to put that transmission in, if you've done your job right, it should just slide right in, guys. Let's see here, what else? I said that the transmission just slid right in, no problems whatsoever. You got to tip your engine back, you know, to try to get a good angle, because you're limited space up here. You know, you ain't got a ton of space for the transmission to go up in there, so you try to do that. There's the hydraulic lines for the hydraulic clutch. Another thing you had to do with the clutch, again, they have good instructions, but you gotta measure your clutch stack, and then you've got to set your clutch bearing. You gotta set that up, and what you want for a new clutch is you want a 0.125 inch gap, I believe, and that's for a new clutch. That's to allow for some wear in the beginning. I believe you want, once it's wore in and everything, you want that release bearing actually touching the fingers. You don't want it putting any pressure on the fingers of the pressure plate. You just want it touching. So I can reach my finger in there, and I can actually spin it, so it is not it's not putting any pressure again, and it's not against the fingers right now, which is what it should be for a brand new clutch. Okay, so here's actually the instructions for this clutch release bearing, and that's what it looks like. And it's got the adjuster right here, screws in, and that's how you adjust it. It screws into the back. Yeah, these instructions are pretty good. Here this shows you what you're measuring, and you're measuring from the fingers to the outside of the bell housing there, and then you're gonna adjust that, measure on your transmission. And then there's an anti-rotation stud too that goes on there. I wish I would have took a picture of that. You got to take out one of these 4 bolts and put your anti-rotation stud on there. Then we had to trim it so it wouldn't interfere with the clutch. No big deal. Again, it's not that difficult if you got a little bit of engine know-how. Yeah, these lines here, one of the lines is going to be your bleed hose, and the other hose is going to come from your the master cylinder of the clutch pedal. So your top one, just like a caliper, when you bleed them, the bleeder screw is on top. That's how you know which side it goes on, is your bleeder screw is always on top. Just like that, the hydraulic lines, the one that's on top is going to be your bleeder line. It'll have a bleeder screw in it. And the other one will have, we'll go to the master cylinder of the clutch system, just like I said. So, yeah, that's what we got there. We've got this transmission cross member in place, and it's looking good because I clearanced it up front here. We've got a nice, I know it's kind of hard to see under here, but nice clearance with that. One thing that's kind of odd is it only uses one mounting bolt. You can see there in the cross member. Me and Dad thought that was really, really odd. We thought something was wrong with that, but according to the guy at Bowler Transmissions, which that's the guys that made this cross member, Bowler Transmissions, that's where we got that from. He says all the new vehicles only use one mounting bolt, so I guess that's the way they do it now. He said something about Energy Suspension makes a mount that'll use both of those mounts, because there's two holes in the mount. This mount actually will work for a few different transmissions, 700R I think even. So it's kind of a multi-use. It's adjustable. You can slide the brackets back and forth. So it's kind of used for multiple transmissions. He said for our 400 horse that we have, should be no problem, one bolt. He says if you got a lot of horsepower, you're probably going to want a polyurethane mount and use both mounting holes. But he said we shouldn't have no problem. Another issue we had is, you're probably not going to be able to tell here, but it looks like the transmission is actually off to one side, and it is off to one side when you compare it to the body. And we thought that's, we saw the one bolt hole was only lining up. Then we looked at it and it kind of looked like everything was kind of crooked in the car. We thought maybe the subframe was crooked, but we kind of measured the frame on both sides here. And the body didn't look like it was off by much. I think we used the line-up pins that are in the subframe to line the body up. But anyway, after talking to the guy at Bowler Transmissions, when he said they only used one bolt, that was okay. We actually went over here and we looked at the rear end, and you can see the rear end isn't centered in this tunnel either. It is off to the same side as the transmission is. So I would say that everything is kind of off-centered. You can even see that bump stop up there is not centered in the tunnel of the car. So for some reason, they didn't center the drive shaft through the tunnel here. So no big deal. We just thought for a second we had a real issue, but it really wasn't an issue. We've got the drive shaft measurements sent to Modern Driveline. They're supposed to be building us a drive shaft. They said 2 to 3 weeks, which really sucks. So hopefully maybe they're wrong on that. We are gonna order an aluminum one. Couple reasons for that. One, we ain't gotta paint it. It's just gonna be nice aluminum. Aluminum, it's a lot lighter. They say the aluminum drive shafts will absorb vibration better. So those are kind of the reasons. It's like $100 more over the steel shaft. So, and then another thing with the aluminum drive shaft is you have to jump up to 3 inches in diameter. I think you can get the steel one in 2.5. Measured the factory one right here. I think that's the factory one. It's like 2 3/4 inches. So I think they said the aluminum 3-inch drive shaft is good up to 650 horse. I think we could have gone with the steel one with the horsepower we have. But again, we went with the aluminum because of the things I stated. So, yeah, that kind of sucks. Hopefully, they're going to get us that drive shaft as soon as possible. I think that brings you guys up to where we are now. I was worried about the cross member and my exhaust. We've got clearance on both sides. So my X-pipe that I spent a lot of time on, my stainless X-pipe is okay. I just have it sitting in there, don't have it tightened down yet because we did remove that X-pipe. Well, let's see here, another worry. We have long tube headers. Everything on this side looks good except for those hydraulic lines might have to be kind of routed up and around away from the headers. This side, you can see that hump right there. That was not on the Turbo 350, so I'm a little worried about that starter bump that is in the housing. That's got me a little worried about the reusing the long tube headers that we have. I'm hoping and praying and fingers and toes crossed that we're going to be okay. I need to get some new gaskets to put the headers up, maybe tomorrow. We haven't put fluid in it yet. Waiting on, let's see here. I've got to put the speedometer cable in there. It goes in that hole right there. That's the plug right now. It has an electronic speedometer deal on it. I think it's right there. It's for the electronic one. Then you've got your backup light right there. The modern driveline has a plug. We just plug into that. That's your reverse light. And then your neutral start, I believe, is right here. And again, they have a plug for that, so you can tie it into your system. So we'll have to get all that done. But right now, we're trying to get the rest of the car put back together. Then we'll deal with that. We got to get the hydraulic clutch and the clutch pedal in there. And once we get that done, we'll move on to the other stuff. Got the Speedo adapter right here. What are they calling it? Speedo Ford to GM is what it says here, but so here's that, and it's got a gear on it. You tell them what, I guess, your tire height and stuff like that, tire size, and they'll send you the right gear to give you the right speed. And it's just a regular mechanical Speedo deal. Speedometer cable screws onto that. This has a bolt. There's an O-ring that seals it in the transmission. So you just push it in there, bolt it down, and the Speedo's ready. Got the backup harness right here. It plugs into that brass fitting. So another tip you might want to do while you install this transmission, or before you install it, is put the transmission in third gear. What that does is it puts the little stub up there in a good position while you're installing it. And if you put your yoke in the transmission, you can actually move your splines, so you can get them lined up with the clutch as you slide the transmission in, which really helps. Okay, so one more issue you're probably going to have is the bolt right there that bolts the transmission onto the bell housing. is so tight with the case that you know, any normal socket is not going to be able to go on that thing. So I think a lot of people use an Allen headed bolt for that bolt right there. The rest of them you can get to, but that one there is pretty tight. We were able to actually find a thin socket to work with that, but I'm guessing most people aren't going to have the tool selection that we have. So probably get yourself an Allen headed bolt for that position right there. So that's about it, guys. I think I'm going to probably throw this video together, and it'll be like part 2 of the install or something, just to keep these videos so they're not too long. But I want to make them informative, so if someone's doing this job, they get some information and a general idea of what it's going to take to install one of these kits. So I'm going to get this one out, guys, and I'll see you.